Welcome back to Apex Sci-Fi. In the strategic doctrine of the Galactic Council, the open plane is considered the territory of the technologically superior. If you have the longest range, the fastest sensors, and the most agile hover tech, you win. The Zykron hegemony lived by this rule. Their military was the pinnacle of elegance, sleek, iridescent vehicles that glided 3 meters above the ground on cushions of localized gravity. Their prism cannons could pick off a target from 10 kilometers away with surgical precision. When the Zykron occupied Golgotha 7, a world consisting of nothing but flat, purple salt plains, they believed they had found the perfect defensive position. There were no mountains to hide in, no forests for ambushes, and no cities for urban guerrillas. It was a sniper's paradise. The humans are primitive tread crawlers, the Zykron High Prelate remarked, looking at the satellite feed of the Terran buildup. They rely on friction and chemical combustion. On these plains they will be target practice. We will delete them before they even see our hulls. The Zykron were prepared for a war of finesse. They were not prepared for the Iron Tide. General Marcus Ironside Vance of the 4th Armored Division, the Steel Avalanche, didn't believe in finesse. He believed in the crushing weight of mass-produced steel. He knew that the Zykron weapons were powerful, but he also knew they were glass cannons, sophisticated, fragile, and slow to recharge. Vance sat in the command cupola of the UTN Juggernaut, a command variant mammoth tank. Around him, stretching as far as the eye could see in every direction, were 5,000 tanks. Mammoths for the heavy breakthrough, sabers for the flanking maneuvers, and gladiators for mobile anti-air. It was the largest concentration of armored power in human history. All units, this is Ironside. Vance's voice crackled over the secure, vibration-dampened frequency. The Zykron think they own this horizon because they can see far. We're going to show them that it doesn't matter how far you can see if you can't stop what's coming. Standard rolling thunder, formation. Engines to 100%. Give them a show. The engines of 5,000 tanks roared to life simultaneously. It wasn't a sound, it was a physical force. The ground of Golgotha 7, a crust of ancient purple salt, began to vibrate. Then the tide moved. A wall of white dust, 300 feet high and 20 miles wide, rose behind the human line. From the Zykron perspective, it looked like the horizon itself was rising up to swallow them. Enemy in range, the Zykron tactical AI reported. Initiating long-range elimination. The Zykron line erupted in violet light. Their prism cannons fired, beams of coherent energy slicing through the air with perfect accuracy. At 10 kilometers, the first human tanks were hit. A saber tank on the far left flank vanished in a ball of white-hot plasma. Another mammoth took a hit to the turret, the armor melting instantly. But for every human tank that stopped, 100 more surged past it. They aren't flinching, a Zykron commander yelled, his 4 eyes wide with disbelief. We have destroyed 50 of their units and they are accelerating. They are closing the gap. Vance watched the casualty feed on his HUD. Keep the pressure. Sabers break off to the flanks. Gladiators eyes on the sky. The Zykron deployed their sky skimmers, sleek anti-gravity fighters that dived from the clouds, firing rapid pulse lasers. They expected the human tanks to be easy prey from above. They were met by the Gladiator anti-air tanks. Thousands of automated, quad-linked 40mm flak cannons pointed skyward. The air was suddenly filled with shredder rounds, thousands of tiny, jagged tungsten shards that created a literal ceiling of lead. The Zykron fighters, built for speed and elegance, were shredded like paper. At 5 kilometers, the humans entered their own optimal range. Halt and fire. Vance roared. 5,000 tanks braked simultaneously, their massive treads digging into the salt. The turrets rotated with a mechanical whine. Load sabot. Fire. The sound was a single planet-shaking tidum. 5,140mm kinetic slugs, accelerated by electromagnetic rails, screamed across the plain. They didn't have the beauty of the Zykron lasers. They were just heavy, blunt objects moving at Mach 7. The Zykron energy shields, designed to dissipate heat and light, were caught completely off guard. A kinetic slug doesn't have a frequency to dissipate, it just has momentum. The slugs punched through the iridescent alien shields like a rock through a soap bubble. Zykron hover tanks were flipped over by the sheer force of the impacts. Their sleek, fragile hulls were torn open, exposing the glowing blue fluid of their anti-gravity drives. The perfect Zykron line was suddenly full of gaps, smoke, and burning violet fire. They are monsters, the Zykron prelate screamed. They are using raw mass. Recalibrate the shields to physical impact mode. "Sir, we cannot," the technician replied, his hands trembling. "If we switch to physical impact, the thermal lasers from their secondary turrets will melt us. We have to choose." Vance didn't give them a choice. "Close the distance. Battering ram protocol." The tanks surged forward again. They were now only 2 kilometers away. At this range, the Zykron could see the humans. They could see the soot on the tanks, the jagged weld lines, and the grim, determined faces of the crews through the view slits. The Zykron fired again, their violet beams cutting down dozens more mammoths. But the human iron tide was now a physical weight. The mammoths didn't even stop to fire their main guns anymore. They used their secondary Viper Gatling guns to sweep the Zykron decks, clearing off their sensor arrays and external optics. The final kilometer was a massacre of industry. The heavy human tanks simply ran over the Zykron hovercraft. The anti-gravity cushions of the alien ships were crushed under the 60-ton weight of the mammoths. The sound of crunching alien alloy and shattering crystal filled the air. General Vance steered the Juggernaut directly into the Zykron flagship, a massive, hovering fortress of glass and light. He didn't fire. He just accelerated. The Juggernaut's reinforced prow slammed into the flagship's side. The Zykron ship, designed for the noble vacuum of space and the clean air of the high plains, buckled under the prehistoric violence of the impact. Vance's tank climbed right over the alien hull, its treads grinding the Zykron's sacred carvings into the purple salt. "Plane is clear," Vance rasped, popping the hatch of his tank and looking out at the carnage. The horizon was no longer purple. It was black with the smoke of 500 Zykron wrecks and 300 human losses. But the humans were the ones still moving. The steel avalanche had done its job. The Zykron hegemony surrendered Golgotha, 7 hours later. Their military philosophy was shattered. They couldn't understand how a species could be so wasteful with their own machines, or how they could find victory in such a messy, loud, and unelegant way. The Galactic Council in the aftermath called General Vance the Butcher of Golgotha. They were horrified by the senseless destruction of such advanced Zykron technology. "You destroyed masterpieces of engineering with tractors," the Council Inquisitor accused. Vance, standing there with grease on his face and the smell of diesel on his uniform, just looked at the alien. "Your masterpieces were in our way," Vance said. "You think war is a game of chess played with crystal pieces. We know war is a bar fight played with hammers. You built your fleet to be seen and admired. We built our tanks to be used and broken. You have the anti-gravity, pal. But we have the momentum. And in a straight line, momentum always wins." Humanity had proven the ultimate armored HFY truth. High technology is a luxury, but heavy metal is a reality. You can glide above the dirt all you want, but eventually you have to come down. And when you do, the Iron Vanguard will be there, waiting to run you over. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. If the ground is flat, we're coming for you, at 60 miles an hour. If you enjoyed this armored charge across the salt plains, hit that like button. Comment below. What is your favorite tank from history or sci-fi? Subscribe for the next front of the Iron Vanguard, the Gate Crashers. The treads are hot. The plane is ours.